So this is going to be our next lecture. This is actually going to be our lecture for our second quiz coming up in CJUS 466, White Collar Crime. The things we're going to cover today are going to be a less, kind of a little bit less associated with specifically with white collar crime. But these are certain things that I think you all as criminal justice majors need to know about crime in general. And if you don't know these concepts for just criminal justice in general, it's going to be difficult in white collar crime. So these are things we do test on, and I want you to know. We'll make sure you guys understand these concepts. The first thing I want to talk about is something very, very simple, but it gets lost sometimes just in an interpretation. What is necessary to have a complete crime? Complete crime could be defined under something known as the crime triangle. Crime triangle, as it states, has three sides. Here's my props. Okay, that is a triangle. Has three sides. Bet you didn't know that geometry would be part of this lesson, but it is. So, on one side, you have a victim. So let's just say down here we have a victim. Okay, you need a victim for the crime. If you don't have a victim, no crime. If someone doesn't come in and say, I've been robbed, shot, if some person hasn't died by way of murder, then you have no crime. The next thing you need is a suspect. You have to have a suspect, okay? So second part of our crime triangle, hold on, is our suspect. And then the last part, we need a location, okay? We have to have a location right here, okay? So a victim, a suspect, and a location. Those three things are necessary for any crime to be complete. You'll hear sometimes, think about this. If someone runs into the police station, they have blood all over them, let's just say, and they go, oh my God, I killed someone. And you say, well, where is this person? Well, I don't know. And we just cannot find any body, we cannot find any other evidence except their statement alone. We don't necessarily have a crime. We certainly have a suspicious circumstance. We need to investigate it. We need to look into it more. All of those things. But we may not have a crime yet. We have in history had cases where there's been, some limited amount of DNA evidence. Maybe not a body per se, but the evidence we have in a way becomes the body. The DNA, the tissue, the blood, whatever it may be. If we have no way of identifying where the body is, that person's gone, just completely disappeared, there's a strong indication they could have been killed, we could sometimes substitute that evidence, that particular evidence, as the body, the victim. We need a suspect. Obviously, how do I arrest someone if I don't know who they are? Okay, not saying that a crime wasn't committed, and the suspect could certainly be unnamed. Or unidentified, but at some level we need a suspect. So if we find a dead guy on the ground, for example, and forgive me, but he has a big hole in his head, we just right away say, oh my God, he was murdered. Well, we don't know. Okay, could have been a piece of debris from the space shuttle or something, falling from the sky. Could have been a bunch of other things. Doesn't necessarily mean he was murdered. He was killed illegally. Taking of basically the willful, malicious killing of one person by another person is the definition of murder. So without a suspect, we don't have a crime. And then lastly, the location. The location is important just because that's kind of in a way our jurisdiction. If a person had items stolen from them, we go, yeah, all of a sudden I'm trying to think of a good example here, but my 12 gold bars were stolen. Well, where do you keep those gold bars? Well, I keep them in the trunk of my car. Well, when was the last time you saw the gold bars? A year ago. Well, where have you been in the past year? Oh, I drive all over the place. I drive all over the country. it's going to be really hard to establish a jurisdiction. Again, we know that a crime was committed, but that jurisdiction or location is going to be very important for us to really be able to establish and prosecute a crime. So anyhow, we need to identify those three parts. If any one of those three sides of the triangle are missing, we basically have no case at this point. Okay? So that's the crime triangle. Don't add other stuff in there. The crime itself, you know, you can imagine that could be in the center. Burglary, robbery, identity theft, whatever it may be. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is, I guess, proof is the best way to put it. The proof I need to show to arrest someone is different than what the courts would need. It's different than what a private person would need. Private person, really, to arrest someone only needs reasonable suspicion. So we're going to define these levels of proof. The first first you just have nothing, okay? A police officer goes up, hey, what's going on? Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? There's no level of proof needed for that. It's what they call a consensual contact. I have your permission, I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, everything's good. The next level, which you know, we'll be kind of holding you guys accountable to in terms of tests and quizzes, is reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion gives officers the right to detain a person, to stop a person temporarily, basically long enough for the reason for that detention to be complete. I always like to ask people, have you ever been detained before? I'll get a big class together and I'll ask them, have you ever been detained? A lot of times, oh no, well, you probably have. If you've ever been stopped, let's just say by one of those officers wearing the khaki uniforms with a little blue stripe down their leg and a little blue bow tie. Sometimes their arms are shaved. Okay, they may not be shaved, I don't know. But let's just say one of those particular officers. Pull you over. Okay? That's a detention, guys. If they pull you over for speeding or tinted windows or your registration is expired, you have been detained. How long do you expect to be at that detention? Generally, what, 5 to 10 minutes, right? If they decide to write you a ticket, about 10 minutes. The fact is, you cannot leave, okay? So the definition of a detention is that when an officer believes that criminal activity may be afoot, may be occurring, and that you, somehow or another, are connected to that criminal activity. Now, this is a little bit different, obviously, than arrest, because can I detain a victim? Yes, I can. Can I detain a witness? Yes, I can. I can detain a victim and witness because I believe criminal activity may be afoot and that this person may be connected to that criminal activity, either as a suspect, victim, or witness. I have the right to ask that victim or witness questions. They don't have a legal duty to respond, but I do have the right to ask them. I could stop them, basically detain them, and ask them questions. How long? Whatever is reasonable. Okay. If I'm conducting a major homicide investigation, and I have multiple victims have been shot, and I have 40 witnesses, yeah, you may be detained for a while. It could be several hours or longer. Okay, that's reasonable. If I pull you over in a car, okay, 5 to 10 minutes generally is reasonable. Okay, so again, detention, reasonable suspicion. Detentions are based on reasonable suspicion. I believe that a crime may have occurred and that this person is connected to that crime. Okay, we see these oftentimes. You know, you hear the scenario. Well, we stopped you because you matched a description of a crime that a person that committed a crime down the street. That would be a detention, and it's based on reasonable suspicion. Okay, so very important concept for you guys to understand. Generally, we cannot arrest a person for reasonable suspicion. There are some exceptions. Without going into great detail, things like juveniles. We can, in fact, arrest a juvenile based on reasonable suspicion. Domestic or family violence. It gives us a tool in law enforcement to take people out of this situation so that the folks in the household may be protected. Okay. Again, it doesn't change in court. When we get to court and we talk about proof beyond a reasonable doubt, those things don't change. So if I arrest a person, perhaps based on reasonable suspicion, who I believe may have committed domestic violence, once that case goes to court, they're not going to get prosecuted, most likely, because my level of proof is so low. But I can stop the violence at that time. Okay. The next level of proof we're going to talk about is probable cause. This is something that a lot of people mess up. Yeah, sometimes even us cops screw this up. Probable cause is what generally we need to make an arrest. Okay. The DA's office, prosecutors, the courts generally aren't concerned about probable cause, other than we had that, we in law enforcement had that to place this person under arrest. So probable cause is above reasonable suspicion, and it basically says, I believe, as a police officer, that this person, this specific person, has committed a crime. Okay, very simple. Okay, I have some proof that's reasonable. Okay, more than just I believe this person may have committed this crime. No, I pretty much know this person, in my opinion, has committed a crime. I show up at a domestic violence crime scene. I see a guy punch his wife in the face. That's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That is probable cause, because there's a bunch of factors that may go into mitigation in court. Whether was this person defending themselves in some way, and I just missed that part. Were they in some way affected, one way or the other? I don't know. But that's for the court to decide, not for me. I basically have just that level of proof that says, I believe that a crime has been committed, and I believe that this person committed the crime. Therefore, I'm placing them under arrest for probable cause. Okay? So for a police officer to arrest someone, the level of proof we need is probable cause. Okay? The last and strongest level of proof is what we need in court to convict a suspect. Okay? Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? You could try to enumerate this. Some people will say, well, it's 99% certainty that this person has committed that crime. Again, it's kind of up to the court. But proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the only place this matters is in court. A police officer, yeah, I mean, sometimes when I'm working my cases, I'll try to give the person the benefit of doubt as much as I can and investigate through that to make sure that I'm not missing something. But I'm not totally committed to showing proof beyond a reasonable doubt in an arrest that I file with the DA's office. Then the DA being the district attorney. And then the district attorney reviews the case and says, okay, well, we believe that this case does merit going to court and possibly a jury trial, and we feel that we have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But it's going to be the court, ultimately, that determines whether or not proof beyond a reasonable doubt occurs, either in a jury trial or a trial by judge. So those are the three levels. I want you guys to understand those really well, because I will ask you questions on the quiz. If I pull you over for going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, that's a detention. A detention is based on what? Well, you could say probable cause, but that's not accurate. It'd be reasonable suspicion because it's a detention. I arrest you for domestic violence. The level of proof I use to arrest you is based on what? Well, it'd be probable cause. Okay. Suspect is convicted of murder in court. What level of proof was required? Then it's going to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. So I'm going to make this kind of a shorter video. I wanted to get those points out there to you. You guys keep working on your assignments. It seems like everyone's getting it. Do me a favor though, make sure that in Google Docs you're giving me permission to access it. I'm still having a few problems, but generally everybody's turning in their stuff right away. I've not had any issue there. You guys did pretty good on your quizzes. There's a few folks that made some mistakes. We'll address those individually with each student. But again, I want you guys to understand the concepts here. I know my tests and quizzes probably, in comparison to your other instructors, are very simple. But the one thing I'm committed to is to making sure you understand concepts, okay? So I will stop here, and then we'll make sure that we follow up on some of the terms that we have been discussing, and we'll probably have another quiz for you ready here right after. All right? Everybody stay safe, wear your mask, social distance, all of that, okay?